We all are fascinated about forest ecosystem or any mountain or river, but generally we overlook grassland as a degraded forest ecosystem, not just the bustard, but there are many other threatened species of flora and fauna that depend on the so-called wasteland of India, but it's a very important habitat. Unfortunately, because of the tag wasteland since the colonial era, majority of these so-called wastelands have been given away for the development, and thus they are threatened or altered by such activities. Historically, there was also afforestation activities which was well intended but ill-informed, where exotic species were planted. They have fragmented the habitat. India has lost around 20 million hectares of its grassland because of change in land cover patterns. It's not just about the bustard. Grazing grounds have shrunk and the number of livestock has increased. 70% of India's rural economy, rural population depends on livestock. The pastoralist community and the local communities whose livelihood depend on grasslands, they are being affected. We have worked with the local community. We have used the modern science and tried to merge it with the traditional knowledge and come up with possible solutions which are sustainable and viable. See this picture, this is the condition of a grassland before, and we have converted it to this. We convinced the community to follow the rotational and controlled grazing method, where we develop multiple enclosures adjacent to each other. So if you have used one area for grazing this year, it would be repeated on third or fourth year. This allows the grass to grow, to produce flower, seed, and maintain their survival. By doing so, they have enormous amount of fodder available for them, and they have become self-sustainable as far as the fodder for the livestock is concerned. So this has become a self-sustainable model. And we have stopped putting any sort of intervention here. We train the villagers and they have been doing or implementing the scientific management on their own. We are not restoring this habitat to develop breeding refuge for the bustards. These are the buffer areas. If you don't restore these grasslands, there will be enormous pressure of grazing on the existing breeding refuge of bustards. Each village have a designated gaucher. If you just restore them, train the local villagers, then this is going to help conservation of bustards. Now, when this fodder was available, ready, and the grazing practice is being implemented very next to the village, the local village women have started making organic ghee. So this is also supporting the local economy. And I think this is how we are trying to balance the economy, development, as well as the ecology of bustard. This restoration has achieved a remarkable thing as far as the biodiversity is concerned. There has been 380 species of flora and fauna within this area. Even the vulnerable grass birds are breeding within this particular restored sites. Lesser Floricans have also started visiting this area, and we are hopeful that within few years they will start breeding in this particular enclosure. So we are quite hopeful that bustards would come there, as the Floricans have already visited. In addition to bustard, there are many other threatened species that are visiting. For example, it has become a roosting site of more than 50 harriers. Vulnerable species like crystal grassbirds are breeding there. This particular model has been visited by various policymakers and politicians, and now it is being replicated in other areas. We have also worked on addressing the issue of power line collision. Renewable energy, they are saying that these are the finest area for the solar and wind production, and therefore such developments are being targeted. The moment you have renewable energy development, you need to have transmission lines. Bustards are prone to collision with overhead power lines. They have a very narrow binocular vision. So when they are flying, they can't see in front. So because of that, they collide with the power line and they die. Now, because the larger landscape is fragmented, they are going to fly from one place to the other in search of a suitable habitat. In between, you have large network of power lines. And that's a fatal situation. And this is exactly what happened to Rajasthan and Gujarat, especially in Kutch region. At the end, Corbett Foundation, Dr. Ranjit Singh ji and Mr. Naveen Bapat and two more petitioners, they filed a petition in court regarding the conservation of the bustard, where power line was highlighted as one of the most dangerous and fatal threat to the species in current situation. And it was requested that the critical lines identified by the experts and Wildlife Institute of India should be undergrounded. Eventually, in December 2025, Honorable Supreme Court has directed that overhead lines that have been identified as critical are to be undergrounded, and there will be two power corridors, and all the future lines are supposed to go through those power lines, but they cannot enter or crisscross the revised priority area. Some of the power lines are being undergrounded. Some of them have been undergrounded already following the court order. It's a huge achievement. In addition to it, this order says that nearly 14,000 square kilometer of the revised priority area should be protected for the bustard. There shouldn't be any expansion of renewable energy infrastructure.
The story that we are about to listen to now is one of beating impossible odds. And I say impossible because conserving the Great Indian Bustard and the Lesser Florican has been a very uphill battle. We all know that the species are, both of these species are critically endangered. And despite heroic efforts by several people in the Indian conservation community, most of the news about these species has been about bustards dying from collisions with power cables, bustards not being seen in several states for decades, floricans experiencing a failed breeding season, and generally the destruction of their open grassland habitat for many different reasons. And our speaker today, Dr. Devesh Gadhvi, is one of those conservationists. He is among the ones who have been working tirelessly and for many years to give these species a foothold in, let's call it, a changing world. And to make this happen, not only has he been engaging in conservation and restoration work on ground, he has also been working with government officials and also fighting for these birds in court. And it appears that after all these years of struggle by Dr. Gadhvi, by his team, as well as the others in the community, it appears that their struggles are finally paying off. I will leave it to Dr. Gadhvi to narrate his story, but will quickly note that his work also shows us that restoration cannot be seen or done in isolation anymore. It needs to engage with the forces that are ultimately shaping our societies and our ecosystems. Dr. Gadhvi is from Kutch, where he has been engaged in conservation along with local communities for over 20 years. Many of you may also be aware that he received Sanctuary Asia's Wildlife Service Award for his work 2 years ago. And naturally, because of his work, he is also a member of the IUCN's Bustard Specialist Group. Along with this, he is also the Deputy Director of the Corbett Foundation. So with this, I'd like to invite him over to show us where bustard conservation stands today and what the restoration community needs to attempt to replicate his team's success.
Good evening, everyone. I hope I am audible. Before I proceed, I would like to thank Arjun, Mandeep, and entire team of ERA India, for giving me this opportunity to speak about bustards and, of course, the grasslands, which is important for all the other species associated with it, not just the bustard, but there are many other threatened species of flora and fauna that depend on the so-called wasteland of India, but it's a very important habitat, neglected habitat. And I would quickly finish my presentation and then possibly we may open the floor for the discussion. Once again, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Okay, so today's discussion or talk is about grassland and bustards, where we are going to discuss three aspects: past, present, and future of the species and this habitat. As you can see in this particular slide on the extreme left, you have the past, where there is a question for the pastoralist community and the local communities whose livelihood depend on open natural ecosystem or grasslands. They are being affected either by invasion of exotic species like then Prosopis juliflora, now Neltuma. Unfortunately, because of the tag as Westland since the colonial era, They are being given away for various developmental projects, be it renewable or other infrastructure development. The new generation is unfortunately quite away from knowing the fact that how important grasslands are for India. We all are, in generally, a layman is fascinated about forest ecosystem or any mountain or river, but generally we overlook grassland as a degraded forest ecosystem, or I mean to say that the kind of importance should have been given to the species and the limelight it deserves was not there for the grassland, and that's one of the reasons. And therefore, we need to bridge this gap between these two generations. They need an extreme left, a restored grassland, and the new generation need to know the importance of this ecosystem. And that is where our role is. Each of us can contribute to such restoration activity. With this, I will again rephrase or reframe my work that this will be divided in three sections. First, we will go through the past of grassland and bustard, then what is the present situation, and what could be the way forward. So this is based on my experience of the grasslands and bustard landscape of Kutch, Gujarat. As far as the past is concerned, historically there used to be 6 species of bustards in India during the time of pre-independence era. But you see at the bottom, the 2 species in this red box, the great bustard and little bustards, are now not found in India because they used to be there on the extreme eastern side, northeast of Pakistan now, which used to be part of India during the pre-independence era. So we have lost them, but we have 4 species of bustards in India today, and 3 of them, the Bengal Florican, Lesser Florican, and Great Indian Bustard, are critically endangered. While the Asian houbara is a winter migrant species to the western part of India, and they are vulnerable. On the top left, you see Bengal Florican, then the Lesser Florican, and the Great Indian Bustard male. All of them are male in this particular picture. Historical records and publication or the natural history indicates that there used to be more bustards in the Deccan Plateau in India and in Rajasthan, and they were spread across 11 different states. But due to various reasons, mainly hunting, the population dwindled down to a critical stage. And historically, hunting was one of the main reasons, followed by the alteration of habitat. Currently, the situation has changed, but yes, we need to agree that historically there were hunting practices that affected the bustard population. If you go through this number quickly, then there is a record by Colonel Mansfield, who in the span of 25 years killed around 961 Great Indian bustards in India, more or less in the Deccan Plateau. One of the publications by Tayyabji has reported more or less 400 individual of bustards near Pune in Ahmednagar. Rahul Dharmakumar Zinji's report says that there used to be 20 plus bustards in Bhavnagar area. Dr. M.K. Ranjit Singh himself has seen about 28 bustards in Mandav and Chotila region. That's the Saurashtra central part of the Gujarat. Dr. Asad Rahmani, before that in 1970s, one of the research by Rahul Dharmakumar Singh says that there used to be around 50 bustards in Saurashtra and Kutch landscape. So if you see this number, the population gradually dwindled down. And by the time Gir Foundation conducted the survey in 2010, there were about 48 bustards in Kutch district of Gujarat state in western part of India and Gujarat. Then the study by Wildlife Institute of India says that there were less than 25 to 30 birds in Kutch. I personally have seen a flock of 14 bustards in the year 2014. I'll show you the picture. And there used to be 5 displaying males in this landscape. In 2016, the last wild record of last 3 chicks was from the year 2016, of which 2 of the birds were tagged by Wildlife Institute of India in 2017. In 2018, we lost the last male in Gujarat, and the population of female was assumed to be somewhere around 4 to 8 individuals. And since I would say 2020, we have 2 to 4 individuals, female. But if you ask me, then I have personally seen only 2 in the field in the last 4 years. Very interesting note is that ex-princely state of Drangadra, that is close to the Little Run of Kutch, had declared Great Indian Bustard as a protected species back in the 1950s, 60s. So there were a few efforts to protect the species and highlight its importance. Current record, one of the study by Khan et al. Says that during the study period from 2001 to 2004, he observed that there was a population of about 633 birds in Cholistan region of Pakistan, which is adjoining area of Sindh, next to our Jaisalmer region. And of these 63 birds, 49 were hunted by the local shikaris. And he has also mentioned a very interesting and scary fact that each bustard was valued somewhere around $150 then. If you look at the recent images being circulated on social media, then these are the records from 2012 to 2018, and this hunting practice is still going on in Cholistan and Pakistan area. From 1960 to now, various scientists, ecologists, ornithologists have worked on conservation of bustard. Dr. Salim Ali was the first who suggested that Great Indian Bustard should be declared as the national bird of India. But eventually it did not happen, sadly, and the species could not be highlighted properly. In 1970s and 80s, R.S. Dharmakumar Singh ji conducted first ever national survey of the Great Indian Bustard. And since 80s, Dr. Asad Rahmani has been working on Lesser Florican and Great Indian Bustard and other grassland associated species and trying his level best. After that, Gir Foundation, Dr. Sutirtha Datta from Wildlife Institute of India, Corbett Foundation, and many other organizations, they all have worked in different parts of India to protect the grassland or the bustard species. And because of all these efforts, because of this large contribution by different ornithologists and scientists, the species is quite highlighted and in limelight today. So we all are very thankful to all of them. If you look at this distribution of Great Indian Bustard in India and Gujarat, then you will see that from 1950s to say 2000, the population shrunk from the large portion of the Gujarat, and it came down to just 2 small talukas in Kutch district. Historically, as per the record, there were enumeration of about 1,260 bustards in 1970s, and today the population is possibly less than 120 or 100 individuals surviving in wild. Similar is the case of Lesser Florican. The Lesser Florican is also going GIB. We will go into the detail later on. So the population has crashed down, and it has been dwindling since years because of various reasons that we will discuss further. So what is the present condition? Now I'll come down to the Gujarat portion, and we'll talk more about Gujarat. So in Gujarat, first century for the Great Indian Bustard was declared in 1988 based on the recommendation and reports of Dr. Salim Ali in Jamnagar, called Gaga Great Indian Bustard Sanctuary. It's a small portion of less than 5 square kilometers in 2-3 fragments. And then in 1992, another small portion of the sanctuary called Kutch Bustard Sanctuary was declared for the protection of Great Indian Bustard, Lesser Florican and Hogara in Abdasa Taluka of Kutch district in Gujarat. Now, if you look at this particular map, you will see that a small red and green portion is blinked. That's the small, tiny 2 square kilometer or 200 hectare of sanctuary. And then there are many different grassland plots within the forest department's jurisdiction. Now, as the sanctuary is too small, bustards keep on moving from one place to the other because 200 hectare of habitat is too small for a species to survive. And considering the then population, there were bustards outside the protected area. Protecting a protected species outside the protected area is the is the biggest challenge. Now, this particular habitat is the only habitat in India where you have 3 species of bustards sharing same habitat in different seasons. In this particular picture clicked by Mr. Gadhvi, you can see that there are 3 Great Indian Bustard in the background and 1 Hubara in front. And the same habitat, if you visit in monsoon, you will see Lesser Floricans using the same habitat. So this is a very important area. And the vice chairperson of IUCN Bustard Specialist Group has named Abdasa as the bustard capital of India. Now, this particular area, though it is very important for bustards, is surrounded by variety of threat. Now, grasslands means variety of ecosystem that has grass cover. Now, the new terminology by Vanak and Madhusudan, a wonderful publication, says that now they're termed as open natural ecosystem, which covers more or less most of the wastelands, unfortunately termed as wastelands in India. Now, these habitats are surrounded by or given away for variety of development, and thus they are either threatened or altered by such activities. For example, a same landscape, one department or agency may think of developing irrigation system within this area. The pastoralists may think that because the grasslands are shrinking, they are left with the last available habitat, and therefore they want to maintain it as it is so that their livestock can survive on it. Forest department would like to protect those grasslands, and they want to protect it even from the overgrazing. Renewable energy, they are saying that these are the finest area for the solar and wind production, and therefore such developments are being targeted. And some of the local people are also converting or encroaching upon such areas and converting them into agriculture practices. Now, those agriculture practices are also not traditional. The crop patterns have changed, and modern or intensification of the agriculture is also affecting the habitat. In addition to it, these areas are, because of such changes, are posing different threats for the species, be it development of power lines. The moment you have renewable energy development, you need to have transmission lines to carry the power produced by the renewable energy sectors. Frequent movement by the farmers and villagers in the area can also affect the breeding activities of the bustards. Extremely high population of free-ranging dog is a huge threat for the eggs, chicks, and the females and bustards. Excessive grazing is also a huge problem because the bustards are going to lose the well-needed grass cover, which is essential for the survival of the young ones. Then, historically, hunting was there. Historically, there was also afforestation activities which was well intended but ill-informed, where aloe vera and exotic species like you see in the picture below, Acacia biavenosa, were planted, and they're highly dense, so they have altered or fragmented the habitat. Recently, up to the year 2018, there was a practice of planting banyan trees in the middle of bustard habitat, and then each banyan tree, as you can see in the bottom left picture, they would be surrounded or protected by a wall. So such attempts have altered and affected the bustard habitat, and these are the direct threat to the species. You can see in the second row, next to on the left side of this tractor spraying pesticides, the habitat was originally a grassland, but eventually it's being converted for the agriculture activities. And when you spray such pesticide with the wind velocity, this pesticide is going to get spread in the agriculture and adjoining grassland areas. And bustards are primarily insectivorous during the breeding season. So this is also a silent killer for bustards. If you look at this particular picture, this is possibly the only picture from Kutch where you can see 14 Great Indian bustards flying in the area. This was clicked in an area called, in a village called Konatia. And eventually the same habitat, you can see those white poles and fencing. One of the largest substation of electricity has been developed at the same site. And this is how we have lost the area. Now, once you have a power substation right in the middle of the core area or important priority bustard habitat, you're going to have this, you're going to connect this particular substation with multiple power lines. And that's a fatal situation. And this is exactly what happened to Rajasthan and Gujarat, especially in Kutch region. If you look at this particular picture, the blinking part is the substation. And now multiple lines are coming to this particular place. And bustards are, because the larger landscape is fragmented, they are going to fly from one place to the other in search of a suitable habitat. Either they are disturbed by a dog or human activity, then they are going to fly and they will land to the adjoining or next enclosure. In between, you have large network of power lines, and bustards are prone to collision. Now, with the intensification and demand of renewable energy or expansion of renewable energy, you can see the coastal area on the left bottom side, you can see the windmills. So there are multiple windmills in this area. Fortunately, we don't have many solar parks. The way the solar has been expanded in Jaisalmer is a different case than Kutch. We have just one solar park in Bita village. And rest of the area, because we are close to the coastal area, so we have many windmills in comparison to Rajasthan, and concentration is quite high. Now the entire landscape is covered with a large network of power lines, and if you look at the map of Rajasthan, which I don't have here, but I'll share it later, the condition is far worse than Kutch. We have less number of power line network here. In this particular map, you can see that tiny green portion is the sanctuary. The blue area is the eco-sensitive zone of the sanctuary. The yellow portion is the Nalia grassland, which is supposed to be declared as conservation reserve now, as per the directions given by the Honorable Court. And rest of the patches are the different cluster of important bustard habitat called the priority areas. So they keep on moving from one place to the other, and you have lots of power line in between. Variety of research says that bustards are prone to collision, and there are multiple research papers, publication, news media articles, reports by institutes like Wildlife Institute and Burma Natural History Society. They say that power line is a fatal threat. And I agree to this because this is the condition, why they are prone to collision with overhead power line. So if you look at the publication by Martin 2017 and 2020, then it proves that bustards have a very poor frontal vision, which means that when the birds are flying, because they are evolved in grassland, they are supposed to scan in the surrounding area to check for the predators. And it's from the evolutionary process, it was very surprising for a bustard to think that there can be an invisible obstacle in the air. There used to be no power lines in this area. There were no windmills. Now, because of the windmills of solar, you have power lines as a byproduct of the renewable energy, which is affecting the bird. Now, they have a very narrow binocular vision. So when they are flying, they can't see in front, or they have very poor frontal vision. In such circumstances, when their head is, say, if the head changes its direction by, say, 25 degrees downward, then they are blind in front. And therefore, they are prone to collision. Now, a study on the Canadian geese, which has about 22 degrees of frontal vision, says that the bird gets hardly 2 seconds of window. The moment they detect the power line, they hardly have 2 seconds. They are heavy, they are moving fast, and they don't have time to maneuver their flight and change the direction and have a safe flight over or above, below the power line. So because of that, they collide with the power line and they die. In a layman, I can explain this, that if a heavy jumbo jet plane is flying and suddenly you have a huge mountain in front of it, the flight won't be able to change its direction swiftly the way a fighter plane, a jet plane would do. So the chances of collision is very high. Same thing happened with the bustard. And they have a very short window of 2 to 3 seconds before they detect the power line. Now, I hope you are able to see this video. You can see the bustard is flying here. the power line is marked with diverter, but it's very difficult for bird to detect the line. You see, at a very last detect the power line, and it takes a lot of effort for the bird to, you can see that the leg is hanging and bird is really struggling to fly above the line by changing its path because it's a heavy bird. It's one of the heaviest flying bird of Indian grassland, weighing from 8 to or 5 to 8 in female, up to 15 kg or 18 kg in rare cases for a male. Similarly, the same line is used by the Lesser Florican, as you can see in this picture. Now, these particular lines are posing a very high risk to the species, and they are right in the middle of the Dalia grassland or the priority bustard habitat. Now, because of these threats, variety of threats, the bustards population crashed down. One of the study by Uddin et al. From the Wildlife Institute of India says that in Thar region, around 80,000 to 1 lakh bird die annually because of the collision with power line. And when I say that bird, it covers variety of species. About 40 species of different birds are unable to detect the power line from a safer distance, and therefore they collide and die. Now, when we are discussing about Great Indian Bustard, as I mentioned earlier, the Lesser Florican, the little fellow is also going GIB way. There is this wonderful picture by the sketch by Rohan Chakravarti, which clearly indicates the threat of Lesser Florican. If you look at the science, then in the year 2017 and 18, Wildlife Institute of India, Bombay Natural Research Society, and the Corbett Foundation jointly conducted a survey, and the result shows that Lesser Florican population had crashed down from what Dr. Sankaran had identified back in the year 2000, and there were less than 265 birds, say less than 300 wild individuals surviving back in the year 2017-18. We have conducted a recent survey, and we are worried the report is yet to be published, and the work is going on, the analysis is going on. But the number of individuals that were cited in the field were very less. There were only 19 male. And it seems that there is further 70% of decline, and there is a chance that population has further crashed to less than 150 or 100 individuals. Another study by Dr. Mohanram also indicates that new emerging threat is the use of fishing net as a boundary by the farmers. Farmers use this to protect their crop from the wild pigs. And the cursorial bird like bustards, Lesser Florican, Indian cursors, or partridge, they entangle with this net and they die. Power line network and windmills are also a huge problem. As you can see that old wind blades are degraded and such plastics. With the rainfall, they enter the village pond. That's altogether another threat. So are these renewable energy really green? That's also a big question. Now, why are we so much worried about bustard or grasslands? We need to understand that India has an agrarian economy. So our economy depends on two things: agriculture and the livestock. 70% of India's rural economy, rural population depends on livestock. And they contribute a lot in the GDP. So on one hand, our livestock population has increased substantially. We are world's first as far as the milk production is concerned. We have 15% of the world's livestock. And on the other hand, as per the work by Tian, India has lost around 20 million hectares of its grassland because of alteration or various development or change in the land use, land cover patterns. So this is the situation. It's not just about the bustard. There are lots of challenges. If we don't focus on these ecosystems, then the future is really bleak, and we need to work now. In addition to it, we all know that in the era of climate change, tropical grasslands are very important carbon basing. So what is the way forward? So we have discussed past, what is the present situation, what are the threats. Now we will discuss what we have done as an individual organization in Kutch. So these are the efforts by the Corbett Foundation team. What we have done is we have worked with the local community. We have used the modern science and tried to merge it with the traditional knowledge and come up with possible solutions which are sustainable and viable. Okay, so we have discussed the threats, and now I will show you that how we have addressed these individual threats and what are the outcomes. So this is how a grassland is invaded by Prosopis juliflora or Nanjuma juliflora. So we worked with the local community, and you see this picture. This is the condition of a grassland before, and we have converted it to this. This has been done with the involvement of local villagers and local community. And since last 8 years, we have trained them. They have been managing this landscape in a sustainable way. And I'll show you what is being done, how we achieved this particular result. So this is how we restore. You see on the top picture, you will see that entire patch is invaded by or covered by Prosopis juliflora. So we uproot them and then we restore the grassland, and we target only indigenous grass species like Dichanthium sancros, Cymbopogon martini, and many others. On the left-hand side on top, you will see that Prosopis have been removed, uprooted with help of JCB, and then we let it dry under the sun for about 2-3 months, and then we convert them into biochar and use it. The entire process is very interesting. First, we work with the villagers to identify the plot. Now, Gujarat has a very interesting model where for 100 number of livestock or cows, you will get 40 acres of grassland. And it is called Gauchar in local language. So these are the registered pasture land within the Gram Panchayat, and that needs to be preserved as pasture land. And there cannot be any other activity like agriculture or any other practice. You can't do anything except growing fodder for your livestock. So we identify such plots with the villagers. Then we work with them, and we decide that how the restoration should be done. First we map that what are the indigenous and important flora within this targeted restoration plot. So we protect the local flora, we uproot only invasive species, and then we have variety of different methods through which we grow different grass in this particular restoration plot. The results are very interesting. The grassland restored by us are producing somewhere around 2,000 kg of grassland per acre now. This is old data, but yes, we are producing somewhere around 1,500 to 1,800 kg per acre. That is the total production. The 2,000 kg per hectare is the production or yield of dry grass. In addition to it, we also get about 1 ton per hectare for grazing. The Prosopis that we uproot, once it is sun-dried, we convert it to biochar if required, or sometimes the villager would request that they need it for firewood, then they would collect it. Some of them, they also use it to fence their the area around their homes or the agriculture boundaries. So we allow them to take those uprooted Prosopis. And this is how the work is being done. In addition to it, the one method is to have seed sowing by a little bit of furrowing in the land with help of tractor just before the monsoon. The other method is when we know that this particular road or area is being given away or being developed for the other purpose, there is a chance that adjacent to the road you will see 30 or 40 years old large grass tussocks. So we collect those tussocks. We collect it from those areas before they are removed by JCBs for the developmental purpose. And from this one large tussocks, we develop multiple small saplings. They are grown in nursery. And once they are ready, we plant them in the patches. So if you have a large restoration plot, and then there can be some areas where the targeted grass density was not achieved. So we use these saplings for refilling activities, and the results are really nice. About 70% success rate is there. If you don't do that, then somehow these tussocks will be wasted because they will be uprooted and thrown away by the people who are into the developmental activity. They want to expand the road. Grass is considered as waste, or the way we work hard and fight for the trees, we don't fight for the grass tussocks. We don't even look at a large grass tussock, which takes decades to grow, is being thrown away as a waste. And therefore, we have this solution where we work with the locals and we try to recycle those tussocks. And I hope this video is visible, because otherwise I'll request Saratin to share it with you later. So this is how we work. With the JCB, we restore the grassland. The prosopis uprooted, and you can see that outside the boundary it is overgrazed. And once we have the fencing, we convince the community to follow the rotational and controlled grazing method, where we develop multiple enclosures adjacent to each other. And then we train them that you are allowed to graze your animal after 3 years. For the first 3 years, till the time the grass seed would grow and develop its roots and develop as a tussock, grazing is not allowed. So during monsoon, no grazing is allowed. After the monsoon, only 25% of the area or one of the enclosure will be open for the grazing, and livestock will be allowed to graze there. From rest of the area, they would harvest the grass. You can see on the top right image, some of the portion of area from where they have removed cut the grass. And in remaining area, they will do the grazing. So 75% of harvest and 25% of grazing. And now this 25% of the grazing, or 1/4 of the area, will be rotated each year. So if you have used one area for grazing this year, it will be repeated on 3rd or 4th year. This allows the grass to grow, to produce flower, seed, and maintain their survival. It's a more sustainable way. Earlier, farmers used to used to cultivate sorghum in this area, jowar. But now they have switched over completely on the development of grassland. If you don't do this, then most of the area are overgrazed, and you don't have quality of grass. By doing so, they have enormous amount of fodder available for them. And this particular village called Kanakpur, Varapada, they have become self-sustainable as far as the fodder for the livestock is concerned. Another interesting part is that because we are next to the coastal area, the kind of dewdrops we receive or get during the winter is amazing. So we harvest or cut the grass with the help of a grass cutter in somewhere around October end or November, and then we let it dry for a month or two. Now, if you see the image on top left, you see that grass was cut in red box. The grass was cut from a zero level. But by the time you harvest, you have lots of dewdrops in monsoon. So in January, February, there will be a new growth or regrowth on which the livestock can be grazed, because grazing is extremely important for management of grassland. If you totally restrict the grazing, it's going to negatively influence the grassland. Once the grass is dry, then the villagers would come and collect this grass, shift it to the godown, and then they would store it. This is done in the month of January or February. So from February to month of March and or April, you still have that regrowth in the grassland on which they would graze their animal. And once that is over, they will use this grass from the godown in summer or drought condition for the livestock. And by June or July, again, you have a shower and grass will grow again. So this has become a self-sustainable model. And we have stopped putting any sort of intervention here. We train the villagers, and they have been doing or implementing the scientific management on their own. Now you see this particular image. On one side, you have open area where you don't have any regulation on grazing. And on one side, you have an enclosure where you have controlled grazing. And you can see that there is a remarkable difference as far as the grass production and restoration of the habitat is concerned. So by doing so, this is one-time investment. Farmers and villagers, once they are trained, they will keep on managing this habitat. Now, this particular model or restoration site has been visited by various policymakers and politicians, and now it is being replicated in other areas. We have also implemented biodiversity survey, and this restoration has achieved a remarkable thing as far as the biodiversity is concerned. There has been 380 species of flora and fauna within this area. Even the vulnerable grass birds are breeding within this particular restored sites. There are more than 11 near threatened or threatened bird species in this area. So if you restore the habitat, it's going to be beneficial to multiple species that are dependent on the grassland. Lesser Floricans have also started visiting this area, and we are hopeful that within few years they will start breeding in this particular enclosure. This particular model and efforts by the villagers have received an international recognition in the year 2021. This is the committee that from the local village that manages this entire patch of grassland, and now this model is being replicated in multiple villages by multiple agencies. But we initiated it back in the year 2016-17. It has been almost 10 years now. And we started with a small patch of 10 acres, and now we have about 500 acres of area where the restoration work has been done. Very quickly, I will also go through the other initiatives. Now, when we were working with the local community to restore their grazing grounds so that their livestock would graze on their own area, rather than creating pressure on the prime bustard habitat available with the forest department. We work with the forest department, we follow the bustard recovery guideline suggested by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Wildlife Institute of India. We develop our own recovery plan back in the year 2014, and we followed that guideline. We removed all the wrongly planted species, we restored the area, and the result was amazing. The enclosures were developed, and back in the year 2016, 3 chicks were born. Of these 3, 2 were tagged by Wildlife Institute of India. Unfortunately, they collided with power line and died. But due to this wonderful restoration efforts and achievement, the local forest department was also, their efforts, especially the watchmen's efforts, were recognized by Hemchand Mahindra Foundation, and they were facilitated by awards. We also worked with the forest department in addressing the issue of free-ranging dog. So we implemented a large-scale animal birth control program in collaboration with forest department and Pets for Animal organization. And more than 1,000 dogs were spayed or neutered and vaccinated and removed from the core areas. We also work with the farmers following the model of IB's rice of Cambodia, where we work with the farmers and encourage them to opt for the organic way of agriculture practice. And the crop produced from such organic practices are being sold in market at a very high cost. The 100% amount is transferred directly to the farmer's account, and many farmers have joined us. We provide them with biopesticide and quality seeds, and we work with them and we help them in marketing their product. In addition to it, we have also developed a variety of awareness material over the last 16 years, where we came up with pen drives and local Gujarati video song on bustards, which was also referred by Honorable Supreme Court. We came up with roadside banners and posters and cardboard games. By playing, they would learn. We implement awareness programs where we take the village students in the field so that they learn the importance of grass process, how the grazing influence or grazing or overgrazing influence the growth of grass. These are ongoing initiatives. So we don't conduct a program once in a while, but it's a regular activity. So every week, one or the other village school or village community would have one of the awareness program in their village, and we take them in the field and train them so they get exposure of both theory as well as practicals. These are some of the pictures from last year's initiatives. We also launched world's first coffee table book on Great Indian Bustard. It was launched in 2016 in IUCN's conference. We are into advocacy. We work with forest department and government, and we have been very successful in securing a large chunk of land which are merged with the existing or adjacent to the forest area. And this is how we have expanded the overall forest land for the bustards. I would say that in last 16 years, more or less 10 square kilometers of the habitat has been added to save the species. We have also worked on addressing the issue of power line collision, where we marked the power lines with diverter and we studied it. One of my colleagues, Ms. Vidhi Modi, is working on this particular aspect, and she's coming up with a wonderful data. And I won't go much into detail, but the results are amazing, and diverters are really effective to many of the species. And if you're not able to do undergrounding, then these are one of the finest solutions. And I would say that about 40 species of birds are dying or colliding with power line in Kutch, and mortality during the drought was somewhere around 35,000 birds dying annually. You can see that a variety of diverters were marked in the study, and we evaluated the efficacy of these diverters, and the mortality rate is quite scary. Soon the research will be published. At the end, you all know that Corbett Foundation and Dr. Ranjit Singh ji and three more individuals, Mr. Naveen Bapat and two more petitioners, they filed a petition in court regarding the conservation of the bustard, where power line was highlighted and as one of the most dangerous and fatal threat to the species in current situation. And it was requested that the critical lines identified by the experts and Wildlife Institute of India should be undergrounded. Recently, this particular order of the 2021 was for the undergrounding all the lines within this landscape. Eventually, the last judgment was in December 2025, where Honorable Supreme Court has directed that nearly 14,000 square kilometers of the revised priority area should be protected for the bustard. There shouldn't be any expansion of renewable energy infrastructure in that area. Similarly, 740 square kilometers has been identified in the Kutch region for the protection of bustards. And this order says that there will be no new wind turbines in this area. The existing and new solar parks are also not allowed. Overhead lines that have been identified as critical are to be undergrounded. And there will be two power corridors. If you look at this particular picture on your right side, then you can see that yellow lines, large band in the map. These are the power corridors. So all the future lines would come through that corridor. As far as Rajasthan is concerned, on your left side, you see where the Desert National Park, the green border ends on the southern part. So 5 kilometers from that last enclosure, a corridor will be identified by Wildlife Institute of India and other agencies associated with power lines. And all the future lines are supposed to go through those power lines, but they cannot enter or crisscross the revised priority area. It's a huge achievement. In addition to it, in addition to the infrastructure, there are lots of suggestions for or direction by the Honorable Court recommended by the expert committee that how variety of habitat or the in situ efforts are to be implemented in the bustard landscape for the long-term survival and conservation of the species. Some of the power lines are being undergrounded. Some of them have been undergrounded already by GETCO. For example, this is the 66 kV power line that has been undergrounded in Kutch for the conservation of the bustard following the court order. Now, we also have the ex situ model, a wonderful work by Ministry of Environment, Forest, Wildlife Institute of India and Rajasthan Forest Department, where eggs were collected from wild, and now the founder population was developed. And now I think we have about 70 or 80 bustards in captivity in the breeding center. And we are hopeful that those birds will be released in the wild very soon. Now, there is a concern that, but it was addressed by the original MOU. If you look at the MOU signed by the agency, Ministry of Environment, Forest, Wildlife Institute of India and Rajasthan Forest Department, it clearly indicates that we need to focus on in situ. Ex situ alone cannot conserve this species. If you do not have secure habitat, safe and restored properly for the bustards, then you won't be able to release them, these captive birds, in the wild. And if you don't have them in the wild, if they don't help or support in augmenting the wild population, which is the ultimate goal of the ex situ conservation center. And therefore, we all need to focus more on to the in situ efforts now, because Ministry and WIA is already working on the ex situ aspect. So our duty is to help them in restoring the habitat so that these captive bred birds can be released in the wild and we can save the species from extinction. With this, I thank all the funding agency, all the photographers whose photographs I've used, my team members, everyone in the Wildlife Institute of India, Corporate Foundation, who are working tirelessly. There are many other organizations and individuals who are working really hard for the conservation of grasslands and bustards. I thank all of them. Because of your efforts, we have reached here, and it's a long way to go. But I would say that it seems that we have saved the species at least from the extinction, but now it is time to restore the habitat, put more efforts as far as in situ conservation is concerned. And let's work together. Let's highlight the fact that grasslands are not wastelands. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Devesh. First of all, a big congratulations to you and everyone else involved on finally getting the order to move these power lines underground and on the creation of these safe power corridors. Also, thank you. A picture is worth 1,000 words, and you've painted a very detailed one with your top-notch photography. Quite painful to see many dead bustards initially, but also extremely inspiring to see the images and videos of grasslands being restored and the concept of rescuing grass tussocks and not letting them die when a road is coming up. And lastly, thank you for weaving that in so beautifully with the sustainability of livelihoods and in propagating educational material on the bustard. You and your team, of course, are as great storytellers as you are scientists.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the Pastoralist and Rangeland Award. We have a bunch of questions already coming in, and we can take them one by one. So the first one is, we have one from Divya, who's asking, have these restored grasslands been used by bustards? And as a follow-up, her question is, how does the human activity of harvesting and fencing, etc., affect it?
Okay, so as I mentioned that, yes, in one of the restored plot, Floricans have visited them, and we are hopeful that soon. See, what has happened that initially we did restoration in a small portion of land, about 10 acres. Now we have expanded it to 500 acres, and we have multiple areas which are restored as some of them are 200 acres wide. We also have a target to restore an area which is somewhere around 1 square kilometer. So we are quite hopeful that bustards would come there, as the Floricans have already visited. In addition to bustard, there are many other threatened species that are visiting. For example, it has become a roosting site of more than 50 harriers, which is again a very important species for grasslands. Vulnerable species like crystal grassbirds are breeding there. So that's very important. As far as the fencing is concerned, the fencing are installed in the initial stage because we develop small enclosures to make the villages understand that they need to follow the rotational and controlled grazing. Once they are trained and they start implementing, what we have done is that we have removed those fencing, and then we develop a large enclosure. So those large enclosures are good enough for the bustards, but there is always a risk of fencing. But you need to understand that we are not restoring this habitat to develop breeding refuge for the bustards. These are the buffer areas. If you don't restore these grasslands, there will be enormous pressure of grazing on the existing breeding refuge of bustards. By creating such areas in the vicinity of core area, your livestock grazing will be diverted. Each village, as I said, have a designated gaucher. If you just restore them, if you remove precipice area, if you train the local villagers, then this is going to help conservation of bustard. And this is exactly what guidelines of species recovery or Supreme Court directives are saying. And we are just trying to facilitate it. In addition to it, once we restored the area, now they have this organic fodder available. Earlier, they used to grow jowar or sorghum on it, and they used to spray pesticide. Now they have this organic fodder. Now, when this fodder was available, ready, and the grazing practice could have is being implemented very next to the village, the local village women have started making organic ghee, which is being sold at the rate of 2,000 to 2,500 rupees a kg. So this is also supporting the local economy. And I think this is how we are trying to balance the economy, development, as well as the ecology of bustard. I hope I have answered your question.
Thanks for that, Devesh. It really is a very well thought out strategy. Moving on, we have a question from Devesh, and he asks how the local communities manage land for grazing versus agriculture. I'll just expand on that. Expand on his question. Rather, he expands on the question. Is there a preference for agriculture over grazing? If yes, how could they potentially be incentivized to remain interested in conserving these grasslands?
I assume that he has asked that why they are not following agriculture over this particular land. So two things. We are restoring gaucher, and gauchers are notified area where you cannot do agriculture. Doing agriculture on gaucher land is illegal. So that's number one. Number two, villagers were cultivating fodder in the form of sorghum. So they would cultivate sorghum on this area, they would harvest it and use it as fodder. But it's an expensive game. You need to understand the landscape. This particular landscape is drought prone, so there won't be any rainfall there. So if you follow an agriculture activity, your agriculture crop doesn't have that particular adaptation to survive within the low rainfall. So the chances of low yielding is high. Then you have to protect the crop from the other species that may damage or raid your crop. So they were implementing it, but when they understood this model and they understood that the production is much more, about 2 tons per acre now, is enough for them. So rather than investing on crop seeds every year, doing cultivation or plowing where you have to use tractor or hire them, and then you have to protect the crop for at least 3 months. You have to, with the way farmers protect their crop overnight, they had to put all the efforts. When they understood that this particular model is self-sustainable, you protect the grass for 3 years, and then for generations you will be able to harvest the fodder. So they have been doing it. And in addition to it, now they get many other indirect benefits through the grassland development. As I mentioned, that ghee is one of them. And they also got so many recognition. The pastoralists are also happy that they don't have to, travel far away in the search of good fodder or grassland. It is very much available within the village. So this is how we are using the government policy, which is already there. The legislation is there that grasslands are to be restored. We are just facilitating it. I hope I have been able to answer your query.
Divyajyoti, if you can hear us, please feel free to follow up in the QA panel. Meanwhile, we can move on to the next one. So we have a bunch of questions from Akash rolled into 2 questions. So I'll just read them out. So the first one goes, as per your experience, how do pastoral communities and local villagers perceive grassland ecosystems? Do they value grasslands in the same way ecologists do as critical biodiversity habitats? And how does this difference in perception affect conservation?
As far as pastoralists are concerned, I think their understanding of landscape is far better than an ecologist. An ecologist would enter a landscape, say, in maybe 5 or 10 years, but they are there since generations. So they know their landscape in a much better way. So there is no doubt as far as their understanding is concerned. There can be some conflict. How? See, pastoralists and villagers sometimes are two separate uh, individuals. There can be a pastoralist with a large herd of livestock within the village, but then there are few individuals who are more into agriculture. They are financially well-to-do or resourceful, and they would just encroach on the land and convert it. Now, this creates a challenge for the pastoralist because he's going to lose his grazing ground. And this is where the conflict is. But then there is also an option where you work with the village community. If you have many, as I said, that 70% of the rural population is directly or indirectly associated with livestock rearing, there comes the play. Now, with the new changes in government policy, where the restoration of grasslands and the clearing of gaucher from all sort of encroachment is being done, I think it's a good time to restore such habitats, and it's very easy for us to convince them. What has happened is that majority of these so-called wastelands have been given away for the development. So the large grazing grounds have shrunk, and the number of livestock has increased because of the dairy and other development. People are in financial condition to buy and keep more livestock, but the grazing ground is shrinking. So there is a demand by villagers in general that they need a constant source of fodder, otherwise they will have to buy it. In case of drought, the conditions becomes worst. So this is a very, I would say, correct condition or time to work with the villagers because they also need this fodder and convince them to restore the habitat. And I think we have been very successful so far with all the villages where we are working. And there are many other organizations who are also restoring grasslands and working with the pastoralists. In addition to it, the invasive species is also a huge challenge for both villagers and pastoralists. For example, if your fodder area is invaded by prosopis, it is of no use. You are not going to, your livestock won't be able to enter it. So if you remove just removal of prosopis itself is a restoration. You remove it and there are grass tussocks and grass seeds in the soil. They would germinate. The challenge comes when you have to convince them for the grazing. Rotational and controlled grazing is the task which takes time to to understand for the villagers. But they are doing it. And I think more than the NGO or ecologist explaining this thing, if you have a proven model, it's better that you take those villagers there and let them discuss with each other and understand that how this model is working. And this has been very helpful to us. We have been successful in restoring large patch of habitat through it. Another challenge, if you ask me, that the largest or the biggest challenge is to get sufficient fund to restore the large patches of habitat, because bustards require large habitat. And small patches of fodder plots or restoration is not going to work for the species in the long run. It may help in addressing the grazing pressure issue, but we all need to work together to secure more funds so that larger habitat can be restored.
Thanks a lot for that detailed explanation, Devesh. It's past 5 and just being mindful of your time here. Just wanted to check if we have a bunch of questions actually that have come in. I wanted to check with you if we can.
We'll go with 2-3 more, and if you don't mind, rest of them can be emailed to me and I'll reply to it.
As you had suggested. So what I'm going to do is do a triage of sorts and choose questions based, just trying to diversify the theme of the questions now. So my apologies to the audience if your question doesn't get selected. But moving quickly to the next one, we have one from Vijay, and he asks, do we have grassland reference sites in Kutch that you model your intervention on? And he says he'd love to hear about that.
Grassland reference sites. You mean that what sort of grassland is required for the bustard based on what we restored? Is that the question?
I will also quickly let Vijay come online, and Vijay, you should be able to clarify. If you'd like to come on, Mike.
Yeah. Hi. I just wanted to know, because many a times you see that even forest department in Rajasthan is planting or spreading one species of grass, or mix of three species of grasses in the name of restoration. So what is the right mix? I know Dicanthium saima community is what usually you find in Kutch, but do you have those intact grasslands? Because in Thar, it seems most of them have been lost.
Most of them are lost, I would agree. But we are not focusing on one species, as I mentioned earlier. What we did was that while implementing, see, we did the restoration in 2016-17. From 10 to 16, we worked with the WII and Forest Department and on our own to understand the landscape first and what are the species there. So first we identify the most palatable and important species from a pastoralist perspective, because we were focusing on the fodder plots. If you ask me from the bustard perspective, things are slightly different. And for that, you need to focus on the large patch of habitat. And there are very few villages where you have, say, 5 or 8 square kilometer. 5 square kilometer is the enclosure, that is the minimum required for a Great Indian Bustard. For a Lesser Florican, the small size may work. So we focus on the indigenous species. We collect the grass seeds from the area. We don't buy it from outside. With the help of local villagers, we also have our own grass nursery from where we procure our saplings. It is also run by the village women. And we are trying to restore the habitat the way it was described earlier by Dharmakumar Singh ji or Himmat Singh ji or by Ravi Shankaran. What was the composition then? If you come and visit Kutch today, then the habitat we studied 16 years ago has also changed. There are a lot of Ziziphus nummularia in the grassland. So we are trying to match the habitat with the earlier condition when the population of bustards was somewhere around 50. So we are trying to develop multiple exclosures that would sustain a population of, say, somewhere around 50 bustards. That would be the target as of now. If you ask me personally, and I remember once Dr. Ranjit Singh ji mentioned that in the early 50s, he used to travel from Koteshwar or Narayan Sarovar area to Mandvi Palace, and from the coastal area, at least 5 kilometers away from the coastline, that was the width of grassland available for the bustards. And seeing 18 or 20 bustards in a day was not a big challenge. I myself have seen 108 lesser floricans between 2010 and 2012. That was the number of floricans found in Kutch region then. But we don't have those grasslands. Those grasslands have been given away for other purpose. So we are just trying to match it with the condition that was there 20 years ago. If you ask me about specific composition, then I would say Dicanthium Sancrus, not Saima. We don't have Saima in bustard landscape in Abdasa. So Dicanthium, Sancrus, and Symbopogon martini particularly. Then Chrysopogons. These are the species that you need to focus on. Aristida can be a tricky part, and they don't use it because we don't see a lot of insect there. Dactylotellum is one of the species that needs to be targeted. So for bustards, you need to focus on the insect, that what type of grass are preferred by the insect, and then you restore the breeding area accordingly. As far as the fodder plots are concerned, you need to focus on palatability of the grass, and then you restore them. I hope I've been able to explain you, and I'll be more than happy to have you, if you want to visit Kutch, then do visit us, and I'll be more than happy to host you, and you can explore the area.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Devesh, I hope the invitation extends to all of us.
Of course, anyone who want to come and see the restoration work, you are most welcome.
Thank you for that. So quickly moving on to just 2 more questions. So we have one from Atula, who says that climate variability is increasing now. And they ask, how resilient are restored grasslands to extreme events like droughts?
Yes. So I would say that in the year 2017, when we were restoring one of the plot, because we used the indigenous grass seed, they survived. We were not supposed to, or we never had to do the seed broadcasting or seed sowing again. So these local indigenous grass, especially Dichanthium, if you have collected seeds from the local area, if you procure it from Maharashtra or other parts, then there can be a mixture and they may not be able to survive. But if you collect the grass seeds locally, then we have very wonderful experience. They are very much adapted to the drought species. But as far as the climate change is concerned, I think drought is not a problem. The problem is extreme rainfall. The rainfall pattern in Kutch has changed. So because of this new rainfall, the new weeds are coming up. And I think ecologists need to focus on those aspects rather than drought, because things are changing now. Either you will have a torrential rain or you don't have a subsequent shower. These are the challenges we are facing. And yeah, I think, but focus on the indigenous species, seeds procured locally or collected locally, and then things will be okay. And even the soil or manure should not be procured from outside. You use your own traditional knowledge and develop, because if you buy say manure of goat, then there is a chance that you are going to introduce new seeds in the landscape, and that needs to be strictly avoided.
Thanks for that, Devesh. Before we move on to the last question, just quickly noting that Divya, Vijay, and Divya Jyoti, all thank you for the clarifications. I think you answered their questions. Okay, so moving on, we have a question from Shankar Raman, and I'm just going to read this out. So when ranges of a species contract, it may not necessarily shrink into the best available or most optimal habitat for the species. Instead, it could be left in a suboptimal area that was least destroyed by other forces like development or plantations, and forces that affected the rest of the range. So his question is that the case for the GIB in Gujarat? And he puts it differently as well and asks, are there regions in Gujarat that do not have bustards now and are far from the remnant population, but could be prioritized for restoration as the place where the most optimal habitat can be brought back?
Excellent question, firstly. And I totally agree with you that when the population has shrunk or declined to a drastic level, they may opt for the best available habitat where you have minimum disturbance. And that is exactly what has happened as far as Kutch is concerned. If you refer to the map I showed, then, as I mentioned, that there were more bustards in Deccan Plateau around Maharashtra than in Rajasthan and Saurashtra. As far as Gujarat is concerned, there were more bustards in Saurashtra than in Kutch. So this understanding that bustards are found in the areas where you have low rainfall and there are desert birds is a wrong concept. You read the natural history and you will understand that there were more bustards there. And yes, because there was no development in Kutch in those times compared to Saurashtra, where Saurashtra landscape got converted into agriculture area, and the population eventually or gradually shift to the areas where the development was not there. Same is the case with Rajasthan. They were there in 11 different states, and now they are. I mean, one of the paper by Dr. Elmani says that we have lost bustard from almost 90% of its former ranges. And all these ranges, all the range states still have potential habitats that can be restored. As I said, that if you have the habitat, bustards will be there. One of the ecologists always say that it's very easy to say that we have a bustard here, but it's very difficult to say that we don't have a bustard here, because they can be anywhere. There are some incidences where, Saurashtra lost its bustard population somewhere in late 80s. But suddenly in the year 2005, there was a pair of Great Indian Bustard one individual of Great Indian Bustard in Blackbuck National Park. It appeared from nowhere. We do not know whether we have such stragglers surviving in the remaining habitat or small fragmented patches of habitat. Similarly, in 2008, there was a record of Great Indian Bustard from Little Run of Kutch, which is more or less 250 to 500 kilometers away from the nearest large population, which is a huge distance for bustard. So I agree with you. We still have potential in different patches that needs to be restored. But for that, I think we should start with the core area where you already have bustard, so that the birds from the captive bred birds can be released along the wild population, so that they learn from the wild population how to survive in this landscape. And eventually, when we have the population growing, based on their requirement, we may need to target. Similarly, there are a few grassland habitats. For example, Velavadar is one of the area where we have one of the finest population of Lesser Florican that can be targeted. Banni is one of them that can be targeted. Bhal region is one of them in Gujarat that can be targeted. Similarly, in Rajasthan, you have so many degraded grassland habitat that may be targeted for restoration, where you will have bustards in the future. I hope I've been able to answer that.
Yeah, Sridhar, I would have unmuted you, but I think unfortunately we are out of time. And I would say
I have another scheduled meeting, so.
I'd say the same about the other questions that are coming. But as Devesh has suggested, we will share the questions with him, and then he can answer them in his time. Devesh, to be honest, till I had the chance to speak to you last month, I felt the situation was quite bleak, and it still may be. But now I also see that all your work over the last 2 decades leads to this moment where we are getting new bustard chicks, and the threats are slowly going away, and the habitat is also coming back just in time. So thank you for sharing your story, and I hope it inspires similar work in other grassland ecosystems. Also, personally, I'm quite impressed with your resilience. Going on and on after so many setbacks, I read about you online. And to have to endure the pain of seeing dead bustards under high tension cables, you've kept the fight going. And I also read that you wish to see a flock of 50 bustards one day, and really hope that this story inspires people to keep the fight going, and that we can help in realizing this vision of there being a flock of 50 bustards. So thank you so much for making the time, Devesh, and thank you everyone else for joining us today and for sticking around so long, and see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, all the participants.
Good evening, everyone. Bye.